Well, good afternoon, everybody. Hope everybody's ready for a very special guest here. I'm here live with MetroidFreak21. He's on the Twitter, and he has some pretty awesome takes on video games. He's big on physical preservation, but enough of my fucking rambling. I'm going to let him introduce himself. He's going to tell you a little bit about himself here.
Well, as he said, I'm MetroidFreak21, or you can call me Corey. My Twitter handle is at MetroidFreak21. It's been like that forever. I play video games. I have been since 1994, so about 30 years. I play in everything. I don't play this fanboy nonsense, and yep.
Well, I tell you what, you've been playing video games since 1994. Fate chose a really good fucking year for you to start video games. Let me just say that.
I mean, I was 3 when Super Metroid came out, so I don't remember it too well, but I remember it being the first one that I've ever can remember playing.
Well, that's a formative experience. Now I'm a little bit older in the tooth than you, but not by much. But yeah, 1994. I mean, just off the top of my head, we're looking at, let's see. So 1994 was Sonic the Hedgehog 3 and Knuckles. It was fucking Super Metroid, Mega Man X, Donkey Kong Country, Final Fantasy 6. Fucking Final Fantasy 6 came out that year, dude.
Yeah, I'm not big on Final Fantasy, but I have a lot of them on Switch.
Yeah, and again, I'm not a serious fanboy by any means. There's certain games I like, and the rest I haven't played yet, so I can't claim to be a huge fan. But
I haven't even finished one. So
Final Fantasy 6 in particular, though, I adore. You had XCOM, Elder Scrolls Arena, Doom 2, Wing Commander 3, fucking Wing Commander 3, Masters of Magic, System Shock. 1994 was a banger of a year for video games. It up there with some of the best years for gaming, honestly. I'd put it up there with 1992, and honestly, 2023 feels like the fucking 90s again in some ways.
well, I mean, I was too young to experience basically the majority of the games that you mentioned, but
Right.
I wish I could have lived that time period a little older, because yeah, a lot of good games that came out that year.
Well, and I came in, so I kind of I was one system ahead of you essentially. So Dad brought home an old NES, old used NES. I was an Army brat, born in Columbus, Georgia, and he brought home a old NES, had a few games, had Excite Bike, had Super Mario Brothers Duck Hunt, the dual cartridge, the legendary dual cartridge, had Defender 2, Contra. So that box was kind of my first introduction to gaming, and basically started gaming by playing two-player with my dad, and they didn't have co-op at the time. It was like that pass the controller type shit. So he would get as far as he would get. When he died, he'd have to pass the controller to me. And I basically learned how to play video games by watching and mimicking my dad's motions in Mario Brothers, and just got hooked from there. It was Mario. Actually, it was Mario and Contra were kind of the two that really absolutely hooked me.
Well, Contra had co-op, but I mean,
Yes,
I would
Contra
imagine
did.
I would imagine you passed the controller back pretty often at that age.
Yeah. At that age, Luigi did not do as well as Mario, for sure. Like I was.
No, but
Yeah,
I
Contra too. Contra was usually a little hard for me at the time, but I was able to keep up relatively well by the end of it. Um, my dad actually was able to beat that without the Konami code. He actually did that. Never did beat fucking Super C though, because the Konami code actually only gave you 7 lives on Super C. So we
I
never,
don't know why they changed that.
yeah, never did beat Super C because of that though. But yeah, that's kind of my origin point into gaming. So now you mentioned you started gaming since 1994. Is there a specific entry point into gaming? Is there a specific game that you just thought to yourself, yeah, I'm going to be doing this forever?
Well, I mean, like I said, Super Metroid was the first game I can remember playing, but I was 3, and I
Right.
obviously couldn't like do anything with the mechanics of the game. But
Right. So
that's the first one that I remember playing. I would always just stare at the manual, mostly, specifically the page with the hatches, the different colored hatches. I was always fascinated by the different colored doors. But I mean, I didn't get my start into gaming for real until maybe like 1997, 1998 with the N64.
Okay.
Because at that age, I was like 7 to 8 years old.
Right. Now on the N64, which game would you say really genuinely onboarded you?
I mean, obviously Mario 64, but I mean,
Right.
I played Mario Kart. I always rented the original Super Smash Bros. Never owned it until maybe about 10 years ago, actually.
Smash.
Smash is pretty fun. GoldenEye was there for the single player. I'm not big on the multiplayer focus because just the performance is too bad. Even back then, I knew it was bad. I played the original Turok and Turok 2 and all that stuff. My personal favorite game for the platform, Star Fox.
Star Fox 64 was legit good. That was a legit mirror on that system.
Definitely one of my favorite games of all time.
Yeah, no, Star Fox 64 is legit. That's the real deal, man. Largely, we had an N64 in the house. Largely, one I remember specifically because it was the one we got in our Christmas bundle was Shadows of the Empire, the Star Wars game, like flying the snow speeder around the AT-AT and shit. Like that's kind of the one I remember specifically. But largely speaking, I kind of jettisoned over to PC gaming for a couple generations after the Super Nintendo Sega Genesis. Yeah, I went over there because I fell down the fucking Ultima and Star Control 2 rabbit hole, man, and didn't emerge for a long time from there.
Yeah, I'm more of a console gamer. I got dogs upstairs in case you can hear them, but I'm more of a console gamer. I bought a PC in 2017 with the intention of transitioning, but I've kind of just stuck with consoles since.
Yeah, it's a hell of a transition for sure. A lot more fucking work, and it's very expensive.
So that's part of the reason why I'm like, nah.
No, 100%. Yeah, and again, it's basically the main reason I left is just basic. A lot of the stuff I wanted to play just wasn't there anymore. The transition to 3D kind of threw me at the time. Like 3D Mario. Yeah, but in particular, me, because I remember playing Mario 64 and I remember being like, yeah, this is cool. But I tell you what, I can't wait for. I can't wait to see what they do with the 2D Mario game on the N64 when it finally comes out.
Yeah, little did we know we'd have to wait until 2006.
Oh yeah. For the console release, 2009. So 18 fucking years between that and the Wii, New Super Mario Brothers Wii. So yeah, I was waiting a while, and ironically enough, the Wii is where I re-onboarded and then skipped the Wii U, and now I do a lot of my gaming on the Switch just because. Oh my god, the output on that system is fucking incredible.
It still is. It's going strong still. I think I have about 130 physical games.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, in terms of collectability, I've honestly never had this many games for a system in my life. I kind of went crazy on the Switch. I've got almost 400 at this point.
Yeah, I used to have the entire US N64 library.
No shit.
I sold them. Yeah, I sold the majority of the games. Like I even had Clay Fighter Sculptor's Cut, which at the time I spent $325 on it.
Oh my gosh, you
collected. But now I wish I had those games because they're
old man advice, and I always tell everybody this. And hindsight's 2020. We've all sold games, but don't sell your games, man. That's why I tell all these younger people: don't sell your games, guys. You'll regret it later.
Before the pandemic, so it was like late 2019. So.
Right.
But I mean, I still have all those good games. I still have all the Mario's, Zeldas, and all that stuff. But I sold the Clay Fighter Sculptor's Cut, Super Bowling, Stunt Racer, all that stuff. But I still have my copy of Turok Rage Wars, the gray cartridge variant. I got Bomberman 64, the Second Attack, Conker's Bad Fur Day. So I have some good, rare games for the N64. I just don't have the rare games.
Now, my cousin Jake was a huge Turok fan. I mean, incredible Turok fan. He's got all the Turok stuff.
I do too, except for the 2008 reboot. But I have all of them on N64. I have Evolution on GameCube. I bought the remasters of 1 and 2 on Switch and Xbox and Steam. I'm gonna buy the third one whenever that comes out, but I'm gonna wait for the physical version.
Yeah, I've been playing Turok 2 off and on. I'm lost in the Cavern of the Blind Ones right now.
Yeah, that's where I'm stuck at too. Because I just can't. I can't find the last tunnel. But I've never beaten that game. Only with cheats I have, but never legitly, and I just can't progress.
Well, I blasted through one okay. I went all the way from one to the campaigner, but yeah, on two, I cannot find my way out of that cave. That cave is labyrinthian, man.
Yeah, maybe one day, but as of right now, I just pushed it
Well,
off to the side.
the N64 that fascinates me because again, it's a system I largely missed out on with a lot of its stuff. But through the Switch, I'm kind of getting the experience of it. In particular, like what is classified now as boomer shooters. So like those were always my favorite games on the N64. Things like GoldenEye 64, Perfect Dark, for example. Really cool games.
Really big on Perfect Dark, to be honest with you. I never really could connect with the story and the character, but I
It's
mean,
bad shit. It's bad shit.
I have the N64 cartridge. I have it digitally on my Series S with the backwards compatibility, but I can't get into it for whatever reason.
Well, single player was never like we would always play the we would always like load up with like the it was me and my cousin, we would play with friends, and then we would load up the not combatants, but what are they called, the bots or whatever. And
Yeah,
like there was just crazy shit you could do on that game. Like you could load up a bunch of P sims, give them dark sim difficulty, which is like extreme difficulty, and what the P sims would do is they would just run around and disarm you and like knock you dizzy, and they would just hoard all the weapons so nobody could pick up weapons. So the goal was to kill one of these motherfuckers, get a weapon, and then hole up somewhere and just try to keep a hold of your weapon. This funny, weird shit like that we would just do. And like I have good memories of it, but yeah, story I don't know much about in Perfect Dark. I don't think I ever completed the story or did much of anything on the story end of things.
yeah. Maybe one of these days I will, because I want to play through the N64 one, and then I have the Perfect Dark Zero from the Rare Replay collection. I want to play through that because the reboot is supposed to come out whenever.
So
So I want to try to get into it, but at the same time, it's not worried about it.
what do we think the odds are? Because I know that there's been a pretty good relationship with Microsoft and Nintendo actually. So they've given us some really good curation on the Switch. We got the Ori collection, we got Cuphead, like we got some really goated shit from Microsoft. What do you think the odds of, given the history between Rare and Nintendo, like what are the odds of getting like a Rare replay collection on the Switch? Do you think that's
I
ever going
think
to happen, or do you think that's a pipe
I
dream?
no, I think that would have happened already if that were the
Yeah,
case.
I kind of feel you on that. I want it to happen, but there's a lot of games on there. I mean, it's even got some classic shit like Jetpack and shit like that. I would love to have that on the go, but
Yeah, I don't think that's gonna happen.
me too. Yeah, like you said, it probably would have happened by now. And I think it was one of the Xbox guys who said at this time, basically that whole thing is done. But I was happy to see that relationship between Sony and Microsoft curate a couple of their bangers. Like, yeah, that was really really cool. And Microsoft, in terms of their strategy, I think it makes sense for them because essentially, Microsoft was always kind of a shield initiative. They basically Sony, Ken Kataragi lost his fucking mind after the PlayStation 2 started talking about Sony becoming a computer and shit like that. And essentially, that caused Microsoft to create Xbox, which was a shield initiative. And essentially, what happened is they wanted to stop Sony from potentially moving downstream and disrupting Windows as a platform for gaming, and it fucking worked. And so now you see Sony literally adopting a lot of Microsoft's practices. You see Microsoft basically more interested in being a platform than even a box. And they got the Game Pass, which honestly, a lot of people give them shit for that, but I kind of like the idea of Game Pass. It's kind of a cheap way. It's an option for gamers to play a lot of games if they want to do so. I'm all about options. I want people to be able to play lots of different ways. My concern is always just don't take my preferred option away, which is physical.
Yeah, I mean, I like that there's options too, but personally, I don't use that service. I'm not big on subscription services, and since I have the Series S, all my games are digital anyway. But
Right. Yeah, I
I've
don't, I don't
been
even have an Xbox, so yeah, I don't subscribe to it. I'm glad it's there for people, but I don't want to see. I feel like physical gamers are getting kettled into an old digital future right now.
I mean, it's inevitable. But for as long as I can. I will continue to buy physical games for my PS5 and Switch or whatever's next after that. But I've already decided that after the next Nintendo system comes out, that I'm not going to buy any more game systems. I'm just going to call it quits there after that system is done.
Essentially,
Personally.
I'm pretty much on your track record there. That's what I've said too. Is basically like the excuse is because people will ask me like, "Zoo, why the fuck do you have 400 Switch games? That's more goddamn games than you'll ever play in a fucking lifetime, man." And my answer to this, although foolishly, because they're right, but my answer to this is it's my gaming retirement because I see the direction things are heading.
Well, it's that too, but at the same time, by the time the PS5 and the Xbox like are discontinued and the next Nintendo system is winding down, I'll be early 40s at that point. And I'm just like, I don't want to focus on other things. Like, gonna get married hopefully soon, start a family. Then I want to focus on that more.
Congratulations! How long have you been in a relationship for?
I've been with her for almost 7 years.
Congratulations, man. Yeah, that's important. You know, links. That's the thing. Like, you know, ultimately, as fun as video games are, you know, the real world always takes precedence. That's where,
Yeah, I mean, I think if I do stop, I'm gonna obviously keep my stuff. Like I want to keep my retro stuff so I can show my kids what I played growing up. But at
oh,
the
fuck
same
yeah,
time,
absolutely.
if anything were to happen, I could part ways with it and make bang.
I think people vastly underestimate the value of video games as assets. Now, I'm not saying that. Now, I'm not saying to go out and speculate and buy every physical game you can, but historically speaking, as the dollar continues to inflate, um, having hard dollars is worth less than just having shit. Whether it be video games, whether it be even a fucking washer and dryer. Like honestly, like they're kind of slowly but surely removing our reason for saving as this inflation goes time and time again. But
Yeah.
that's a problem with the entire economic model. It's not anything we can solve as gamers, but it certainly has kind of changed my investment and perspective on
Well,
what
video
I
games
buy.
are they've always been an investment. Like, yeah, they're for entertainment and all that stuff, but if you collect certain things or if you buy retro games or just games in general, so you hold on to them, the more you collect, the more it's going to be worth. So, I mean,
Well, yeah,
it's
look at
always there just in case something were to happen. Like, because since it's not something that you need, if you will, it's just I
yeah,
don't know. I don't
it's a
know how to
commodity.
word it.
It's a commodity.
You know, yeah, just like I can let go if I have to. That's all I gotta
Hmm.
say.
Exactly. Um, what's yeah, and I'll tell you, the price of some of these retro games fucking floors me. Like I've got to
I'm
sit.
honestly surprised that bubble hasn't popped yet. Like it's been like that
Yeah.
since I want to say late 2019, right before the COVID, and then right after
Well,
everything
the
just skyrocketed
pandemic really accelerated it. Yeah, really
because
accelerated.
people just wanted to stay home and play the things that they had, or just in general, just not go out.
Yeah, I mean,
And
yeah, when going out's a little bit risky because of the COVID, you gotta tend to stay in a little bit more, and that's what I was trying to tell. I was talking with OJ from Player Essence on here, and we were talking a little bit about that. One of the arguments he makes is that the 2020 pandemic. He talks about how well look how gaming did during that time. So the economic downturn doesn't necessarily translate to gaming crash or to anything happening befalling gaming. But my counter to that, and he agreed with me on this, is that well, yeah, but the pandemic also removed gaming's competitors largely. Um, you know, gaming doesn't just compete with other video games. Video gaming competes with all things, whether it's going to concerts, whether it's going and visiting with friends. Everything is ultimately a competition for the only true currency, which is our time. Um,
yeah, engagement over anything else.
yes, 100%. And so essentially what that means is if I'm out at a concert, if I'm at dinner with friends, that's time that is not being spent on video games. So those video games are competing. So if I can't do those activities and I'm inside and I'm isolated, video games and other entertainment such as streaming services, things of that nature, all this is stuff that's going to boost temporarily in the pandemic, but it's not anything. My concern with video games and the direction it's heading is what happens when all the macroeconomic trends go into reverse. Like if you look, there's no longer markets to expand into. The last major console market was China, and that was lifted in 2013 with the console ban. Population growth has kind of stopped. So essentially, we've got this doctrine that shareholders are fed time and time again of infinite growth. But at the same time, that infinite growth is no longer possible without deflating your own product and starting to stick it to your own customers. And that's where the growth is coming from now.
That's why they're making all these services come out and why they're raising the prices of them. And sometimes you just got to bite the bullet and say, hey, I'm not going to support that. Kind of
100,
like with the
100%.
PlayStation Plus price hike, because I use that to have cloud saves and all that stuff. But
Right.
ever since they raised it to $80 for the base, I canceled
fucking
that.
crazy. Can you believe that shit? I mean, yeah, I can, but
yeah, I can too. But I just decided that I'm going to keep everything on the console.
And I'm glad to hear that, man, because that's the thing. One of the things I talk about very common on here is that, gamers in general tend to have a really large case of Stockholm syndrome. You have so many people saying, well, can't help it. I guess we got to move forward. And fuck that. No. The biggest tool you have as a customer is your ability to walk away. And people got to utilize that more. So why would you now, if you genuinely enjoy what's going on and you genuinely enjoy the games and that cost benefit analysis says, hey, I like the games enough to deal with all this bullshit, then sure, by all means. But I think there's going to come a time where the bullshit outweighs the quality of the games, and you're already starting to see it a lot of things. This year's been a good year in general, but there's also been some real duds, and I think gaming blew its wad this year. It's going to be interesting to see what next year brings for games.
Well, I try to stay away from the games that I know that are going to be bad, like
Me too.
Forspoken, for instance. But I mean, if I can get the game for like $5, $10, then I'll bite the bullet. Like, I think the Callisto Protocol that came out this year, sometime late last year or whatever, I bought my copy for $10, and GameStop just recently was selling it for like, I think the collector's edition, even with the statues and all that, for like $25 because nobody wants it. So yeah, there were some bad things, but I mean, this year has been one of the better years, even though I'm kind of more selective with the price increase of games. It's just
now the price increase was, and the thing is, like, if they were, there's some to me it depends on the game, and that's what I always tell people. So a physical game should be as expensive as it has to be, but that's exactly that. It should be as expensive as it has to be. So I don't see, like, Callisto Protocol is going to be $70. Fucking really? That fucking game's going to be $70. Now, Baldur's Gate 3, which somehow was $60, sure, 100%. I'd pay 70, but I'll pay 60.
I haven't bought that yet. I'm still waiting for that physical version.
Yes. Now what I did is I went to, I kind of, and that's one of the things I'm telling people is, like, I'm kind of rethinking physical at this point, especially on PC. So you can get it on Good Old Games, for example. And I was having this discussion with Nintendo Revised. And I said that, yeah, I got it on Good Old Games, which is DRM free. So I don't fuck with Steam unless it's absolutely necessary, and I don't think I've ever had to. Or Epic Game Store because it has nasty DRM. But on Good Old Games, it's DRM free, so I download that game, and then I stick that on a read-write SD card. And my question to Nintendo Revised, I guess I'll ask you as well, because it's always good to get differing perspectives. I asked him, I said, is that a physical game at that point?
I personally don't think so, because you're kind of just transferring from one service to another. I think like a physical game is something that you can take out of the case. For instance, like a PS5 disc, you can put it in the PS5, play it, take it out, and then put it back in the case on the shelf. I mean, but
it's got the box. It's got preferably the
manual. It's got a manuals are non-existent nowadays, but
well, some of the limited publishers are still doing them, and every once in a while one ends up. But by the way, are you familiar? This is not so. This is something that only a fanatic like me does sometimes. Are you familiar with the fan-made manual movement going on?
Yeah, but I haven't bought any.
Right.
personally.
That doesn't
It,
interest a lot of people, but it's kind of interesting, and the reason I bring that up is because I just want to point out that one, the continued deflation of these products, what it ultimately ends up doing is it ends up um, giving us more and more reasons to buy used. It ends up giving us more and more reasons to buy at steep discounts. The more you commoditize and the more you deflate your product, the less incentive we have to buy it. So, for example, people things like manuals, cloth maps that like Ultima used to come with the Origin Systems black box games. This is all shit that people don't want to buy used because oftentimes when it goes to the used game store, that shit's not in the box. And so having that stuff is a little bit of a bulwark for a lot of collectors in terms of stopping them from buying used because a lot of times you miss out on that stuff when you do that. So one, they're deflating their own product and it's causing the used game crisis that they cry like babies about. And number two, it shows like just the fact that there is a couple creators. There's um, Nosy Tegu on Twitter, for example, sells the manuals and makes a killing on those fucking things. And then there was also Rejo, who is he makes Spanish language manuals. Same thing, killing it. I've talked to both of them. They're killing this thing. So there's money being left on the table that is being scooped up. That AAA video game land doesn't want to do manuals. That's fine. We'll scoop it up. And that's what's kind of happening there. Very similar to the indie movement, where there's certain games that AAA studios just won't make anymore, and so the money's on the table. We want and demand these products. Somebody's going to fill that void, you know.
yeah, I mean, I no hate towards them for trying to scoop it up, as you said, but I just I personally like at the same like I don't know I'm trying to say like I liked collecting like complete games like for if I go for like a GameCube or a Wii game used it has to be complete like with the case and all that stuff. But with the modern games like the Switch and PS5 that I collect for physically,
Ugh.
like I've just become adjusted to them not including stuff. Like I like the idea that people are taking that old school feel into the new generation, but it for me it's just more money that I need to spend to make it complete, even though it's not
Yeah,
official. Like it's got to be for me. The gaming like collecting, I only can collect like official things. That's how I've always been. I don't know if that's just a mentality type of thing, but it has to be included like right off the bat. If it's like a custom made thing, then it's not something that I'm interested in. But I mean, like I said, I understand why they're doing it, and that's good for them. It's just something that I want to support.
it's not something you're interested in exactly. So
Not really.
yeah, 100%. I can see that. A lot of people actually say that too. So you're not alone in that by far. Because again, you know, there are a lot of people that do say, well, okay, well that's cool for the people that want it, but why the fuck am I going to spend an extra $20 sometimes or $12, whatever the fuck it is, for something that's one not even official, and two, I've already spent $60 on this goddamn game.
Yeah, it's
So
just something that I just don't find necessary, to be honest.
100%. So now on the Nintendo Switch, what has been your favorite game on that so far? What are we thinking as far as what's your
I
top
mean, I think you can have a general idea based on my username, but
Metroid Dread, maybe, or is it Prime?
no, definitely Metroid Dread has been my go-to for the out of the two games. But I mean, Metroid Prime is still probably my second favorite game in the franchise. But I've been playing that since like 2002,
We're eating
and
good. We're eating good on the mainline IPs on
I
Switch.
just, I just wish that there was just a little bit more. But I mean, for what we got, it's nice, especially seeing Metroid 5 come out. It's just that was something that I never expected because I've been following that game since it was announced in like 2005, like when it was shown on the Game Pro magazine or whatever.
Oh, me
And to
too.
see that,
I
to see
thought
that, go ahead.
I thought Metroid was Dunzo after Other Rim. I am so
No,
fucking glad.
I no, I didn't think it was Dunzo, as you say, but I know that they were gonna put it on hiatus because the game was just so poorly received.
Oh,
But no, I always held out hope that they would release it, and once they announced I guess the release of it in June of 2021, I lost it. But I knew as soon as they showed Samus drop down, I instantly knew like, oh, this is a sequel to Fusion. Uh, but no, that was probably the highlight of my gaming career, just to see them finally release something that I was so excited for. And it came
and
out
it
4 days
turned
before,
out
and
so
it came out 4 days before my birthday too. It's like Nintendo knew, and,
good. They've been reading.
and yeah,
The unfortunate Nintendo rep who's assigned to each of us was reading your thing, and he's like,
I
"Oh,
was
Nintendo, we got to do this for this guy, man.
I
Come on."
used to work at Target,
Okay.
and every time they would have the Nintendo rep come, I'm like, "When's the next Metroid game? When's the next Metroid game?"
Absolutely, man.
And then once Dread came out, I was just like, "You did it! You crazy bitch! You did it!" And then once the rumors of the Prime remaster came out, I'm like, "When's that coming? When's that coming?" And then, sure enough, they shadow dropped it in February, and I'm like, "Holy crap!"
And
But
I still
Metroid is it's Metroid's my go-to for that system. It's not my most played Switch game right now. That's still Breath of the Wild, but the
again,
Dread, once I complete this playthrough, I think will become my most played Switch game.
again, we're eating good on the mainline IPs. We're
I
eating.
just we need more. I mean, yeah, I got the Mario's and I got every Zelda game, even though I'm not big on Zelda. But I just give me Metro Prime 2 and 3 on Switch.
I think it's gonna
Or give
happen.
me I
I,
think this is the final year for just Twitch support. So I personally, unless it comes out Shadow Drop late this year, like Christmas or early next year, I don't think
well,
it's gonna happen.
there's going to be a transition period for sure. So
Well,
there's
yeah, but I don't think it's
well,
gonna happen for Switch.
and let me give my logic why I disagree with that. But I think it's going to come, and my reason being is they gave us a 10-year timeline for the Switch. That's an official timeline. And now is all that going to be Switch? Fuck no. They're going to be transitioning into a new system probably sooner than I'd like. Honestly, it's going to be happening. But I look for Metroid Prime 4 to be a bridge game.
Yeah, it's gonna be a dual release,
Mhm.
and knowing me, I'm gonna buy it for both systems.
And then now the question arises: we got Metroid Prime 1, and if they were going to release any of them, I'm glad I never got to play Metroid Prime 1 to completion. So I finally
Year,
played first
how
time
did
this
you
year.
go this long without the?
My sister had the GameCube in the family, and she was on Animal Crossing all the fucking time. So Metroid Prime was one. It was one of the few GameCube games I wanted to play. That was one of the ones I wanted to absolutely play, and I played a little bit of it. I would get like to the magma area, the Magmore Caverns,
Yeah,
and that's where okay, off you go. It's Animal Crossing time. So because that was her system. That was specifically her system. She had it for Animal Crossing. So the only game I actually was able to complete on that system, there were two, and it was Resident Evil 4 and it was Zelda Twilight Princess are the two I completed.
I I'm just I played Resident Evil 4 on GameCube. I got Twilight Princess on the Wii U, but it's just, I mean, I'm sorry that you didn't get to experience that game fully in that time period. That was the first ever game I got
It
for the
was
GameCube.
marvelous.
When I got it for Christmas in 2002, I was 11. I got that and Fusion the same Christmas, and that's probably the main reason why I still play games. But no, playing through that game for the first time at 11 and stuff like that, you just like, holy crap, gaming can't get better. And then the trilogy came out in 2009, and then the remaster, which is now my preferred way to play it. And it's just a game that I've been playing for 22 years, and I'm
The
still not
the
tired.
the remaster is incredible.
It's definitely the best looking game for the Switch. I'll give you that much.
I tend to agree with you. The only
And
one
and
I can even get close to it would maybe be Astral Chain, but only in terms of art style, not in terms of sheer graphical fidelity.
I
And
haven't. I have Astral Chain. I haven't started it yet.
yeah, Astral Chain looks real good. And then
I heard it does.
Luigi's Mansion 3 gets up there. But
Luigi
I
Mansion is definitely great, but
I don't
I
know, man. That those rain effects when you land on Talon 4 and you got those fucking rain effects going, and oh god, it's gorgeous. It looks like I still can't believe they called that they called that Metroid Prime remastered. It's like
I mean, it technically is
it technically
because it's
is,
still the same game engine and all that, but I
but
mean, the
holy
changes,
shit.
like visuals and the atmospheric effects, it makes it a brand new game, in my opinion. But
Yeah. And just
it's
in the dual thumbsticks, man.
I mean, I don't mind that control scheme, but I'm more of a pointer guy because I played the trilogy version so much, and that's how I preferred to play it until that version
I'll
came
have to
out.
try it that way. I'll have when I replay it, I'll do it that way for
It's
sure.
not for everybody, but I mean, the pointer controls on the Wii are better because the gyro loses sync so often. You have to reset
Right.
it. But I mean, for the most part, it
I
still plays really
I
well.
remember I remember Metroid Prime 3 Corruption being wonderful, like in terms of the way
Uh,
it controlled.
I controlled great, but I've only beaten that game once, and
Yeah,
that was in.
it's not my favorite game in the series for sure.
No, it's definitely one of my lower tiered games out of the entire series. But I mean,
Agree with that. Yeah, I would agree
it's
with
a
that.
game that I've been meaning to replay because it's been since 2007.
How is Metroid Prime 2? Give me a Metroid Freak 21 review of Metroid Prime 2 briefly.
Metroid Prime 2 is the first game I ever pre-ordered,
Okay.
believe it or not. But I mean, it's if you play the GameCube version, it's kind of more or less the same. You still obviously the first person and all that stuff, but the dark and light balance was very unique for the time because, like I said, I'm not big on Zelda, and I know that A Link to the Past did the light and dark stuff, but for Metroid, it added to the creepiness of the atmosphere, kind of made it really moody. It was definitely a lot harder. Like it's a very challenging game, but the Wii version toned down that difficulty. But it's more visceral. It's I think faster paced, except for like the towards the middle, early ending of the game. It kind of slows down dramatically because of all the backtracking. The backtracking's a lot worse than in Prime One.
Oh,
That's probably
that's saying something because that was the weakest
it's
part of
because
Prime.
it's the dual planets that you have to travel back and
Gotcha.
forth to. So it's kind of tedious, but I mean, it stands tall against its predecessor. It doesn't surpass it, but it's definitely in my top five for Metroid.
So now here's you caught my attention with two words, and to me, it's kind of the essence of what a Metroid game is. You said it's creepy, and you said it's hard. And I
Uh,
like both of those words in conjunction with Metroid. So my first Metroid game was actually Super Metroid, but you're gonna think I'm crazy. My actual genuine love until Dread was Metroid 1. It was OG Metroid. It was.
okay, that one is I can't play that one anymore. It's too dated. It is too dated.
It's it is
I can't play it anymore. The frame rate is too bad, and it's just it. I mean, I get that Metroid is an isolated experience, but I've been spoiled with the map, and
yeah,
I
Metroid.
can't
So to
play it anymore.
me, Metroid has always been that. So I like to use the terminology of the arcade, which is the arcade you've got right up front. If you ever entered an arcade back in the old school days, there would be the right up front is always going to be your big ticket arcade machine. So your Pac Mans, your Donkey Kongs, your Street Fighter 2s, right? Now somewhere in the back of the arcade, filled with smoke, drinks in hand, there's a cabinet it's surrounded by hardcore gamers called Defender 2. It was Defender 2 was the cabinet that was always frequented in Aladdin's castle. Metroid has never been the highest selling. It's never done Zelda or Mario numbers. Not even close, but I argue it's just as important as those other two. And the reason for that is because it serves a different purpose than those other two games. It is Nintendo's hardcore experience essentially. It's their
They're
experience.
more mature.
Yes, 100%. Basically, when people accuse Nintendo of being kiddie, which started really fucking strong and fast in the 90s, kindly point them toward Metroid. And Metroid will absolve you of that charge. At least that game will. Now, over time, that was actually one of my biggest issues. Like looking back and playing Super Metroid, like Super Metroid, I can play in my fucking sleep now. Now, part of that is because I played it so many goddamn times. But the other part of that is because it's just not a very hard game. And it's otherwise a masterful experience. But that's one of my critiques of it is it could be a little harder in terms of what that series means for Nintendo, as opposed to say Dread, which just kicked the shit out of me the entire time.
Yeah, the first playthrough was rough for that game, I'll tell you.
Oh, Dread, yeah, Dread will punch your head out through your ass. Like it does not
I,
care.
well, nowadays I can breeze through it, but I've played through the game like 16 times by now. So
Yeah, so that'll do it. Yeah, absolutely. So, um, so, and if you look at it, what's interesting about Metroid, and I always brought this up. Me and OJ had a great discussion on this, and I've also had this discussion with Jay from Cold Nights. If you look at Metroid, the way sales track, OJ was from Player Essence was saying, well, if you look at Dread, Dread is the best performing Metroid game, right?
yeah,
Except it's not. And the reason I say that is because if you look at the sales, like if you're doing a direct comparison across the series timeline, yeah, Metroid Dread is absolutely the best selling Metroid game. But you can't do that. The reason you can't do that is because macroeconomics don't stand still. Macroeconomics change throughout the ages. So let's compare. So if you compare the population increase from 1986, which is where Metroid OG came out, and you compare that population increase, if you adjust for population increase, if you adjust for the fact that there was an Iron Curtain, which rendered about half the world inaccessible to Nintendo markets, if you take into effect the cartridge shortage, which actually limited a lot of the games, in particular Kid Icarus, Mario 2, Zelda 2, Metroid, all victims of this, didn't even get a reprint until it's like 1989 and 90, because there was a huge cartridge shortage in 1988 that hindered that. I would argue that Metroid sales were actually suppressed, and if you adjust for the macroeconomics, Metroid does something like 6 to 7 million if you adjust for that population increase. So if you look at the performance, based on the population in 1986 and based on the limited market available to Metroid, Metroid sold 2.73 million copies in 1986. That's crazy. That is mega impressive. And it's a bar that has never been topped. Now, Super Metroid didn't do it. Um, Fusion didn't do it. Dread might end up doing it if it keeps climbing, but Dread needs about 7 or 8 million. I don't know if it's going to get there to be the true macroeconomically adjusted best selling. That's my point. Is so, um, it's an interesting discussion because I guess my question is it's kind of like I was having this also with the Mad Belmont when I said Castlevania is another series like this that just Castlevania has this huge cultural relevance and cultural significance, and yet the mass market sales just aren't there. And as good as these fucking games are, I guess my question is, I would pose to you, why do you think that is? Because I think Dread should easily be double what it is right now, as far as the quality it is.
I guess gamers' opinions change. I know that a lot of people, especially at launch, hated the fact that a 2D game was $60. So I guess they just feel like that wasn't worth it because it was just simply 2D, which 2D has made a huge comeback in recent
Oh
times,
yeah,
and
yeah, and
I think that hurt sales just because of the notion of it was 2D. I mean, granted, when just recently it dropped to $30, and I know it's sold out everywhere that had it for $30. So I guess people saw the value in it at $30, but it's just I don't think Metroid can break out of that mold. Like, oh, it's a 2D game. Why do we need to pay top price for it?
you know,
And especially when other Metroidvania games like Hollow Knight and all that
I
stuff
was going to ask my
are
next question.
significantly cheaper.
Yeah, that was my next question I was going to ask. Do you think they waited too long? And what I mean by that is in the Darth Left Behind by Metroid post Other Rim, um, a lot of indie studios, it's actually like the fucking go-to game. Every fucking indie studio throws a wrench at a fucking Metroidvania game. Every single one. And some of them end up being quite good. Like just off the top of my head, I've played Time Spinner. I played Hollow Knight. Hollow Knight, which arguably might be one of the best Metroidvanias of all time.
I still need to play that.
Yeah, it is phenomenal, dude. It is phenomenal. But I
I
guess
have the physical cartridge.
me too, me too. But I guess my question on that is, do you think that again, it goes back to that point that if you leave money on the table long enough, somebody's going to pick that money up. Do you think that part of the reason for the depreciating sales of Dread would be that there's so many other just this genre has blown up and there's a lot of competition and it's now a red ocean where it used to be a blue ocean? Could that possibly be it?
I mean, like I said, I think it also comes down to what people are willing to spend for that type of game.
Yeah,
I also,
Hollow Knight did, I think, 3 million, around 3 million. I'd have to check the sales again, but
yeah, I don't know.
Hollow Knight did that, and it did it at $30. So I mean, again, at Metroid, I think if Metroid was priced, maybe that is a key.
Yeah, I don't know. People are very hesitant. It seems, other than like people that are on the outside of like the Nintendo bubble, they're very hesitant to spend full price on Nintendo games because they feel like it's going to be lesser quality, or it's not going to perform as well as say the PS5 or Xbox
Sure.
games, or
Yeah.
for whatever reason. Like they have this mentality that it's just, oh, it's Nintendo, who cares? But I just I don't know. I'm going with that. You know, I think you know what I'm trying to say. Like, it's
Oh,
just some
100%.
people
Yeah.
are stubborn, and it's just I don't think Metroid can get out of that bubble. Like, yeah, Dread helped like get the word out for Metroid. That's why after that game came out, sales exploded for the older games. But it's just I think that Metroid is going to be always kind of relegated to the people that play the franchise more than anything.
Sure.
I don't think it's going to make a lot of new people come to the franchise,
And again,
unfortunately.
it doesn't have to be a mega seller. Like Metroid existing and being that more hardcore experience, very important to the overall platform offerings. I liken it to a restaurant. Like, yeah, when you go to a restaurant, there's that special you always want to get, but every once in a while you have a hankering for another dish. Like, you don't always want to eat spaghetti and meatballs, and you don't always want to eat. Sometimes you want to have a good chicken yassa, And Metroid is that dish. It's basically.
That is.
Oh yeah, chicken yassa is it's a African dish. It's caramelized onions and lemon juice, and it's over rice with chicken leg quarters. Essentially, it's pretty delicious, but it's not something that's familiar to a lot of gamers. That's kind of why I use that as a reference. It's not a lot familiar to a lot of eaters. So, whereas spaghetti and meatballs, we all fucking know spaghetti and meatballs. That would be your Mario, for example, or your Zelda anymore. Now, Zelda was in trouble for a long time too, and Breath of the Wild came out and just fucking shattered, even with the macroeconomic adjustments. Like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom together have sold more than the rest of the franchise combined. So there's always the potential, I guess, for a breakout, but I don't know. I think Metroid's got a whole lot more of a path to hoe to do that than, and again, it doesn't necessarily have to.
Yeah, I don't think Metroid's going to do that.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that. Do you think now? I do worry that Other M. I go back and forth. I worry that on one hand that this really damaged the Metroid brand, but then I also remind myself that nobody fucking played that game, so how could it damage the brand?
I did.
You did play it now.
I pre-ordered it, got it day one.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Did you?
Well, nobody knew it was going to be that controversial back in 2010.
I did. I called it. I actually called it. Believe it or not, I've got old writings on that. I'll tell you why. I'll tell you exactly why. I listened to Sakamoto and what he said. And if you sat down and you listen to the Iwata ass, and if you listen to those interviews, and he's talking about like this bizarre shit, like her daddy issues with Adam and maternal instincts. Metroid is about maternal instincts, and it's not about the Metroids or the isolated environment or the strange alien planets or Samus's badass fucking bounty hunter past and suit. Like the focus was all wrong. And I knew that going. I'm like, oh shit. The more I listen to this guy talk, the more I realize that this is going to be a disaster. Just like when I listened to E.G. Aonuma talk about Skyward Sword, I'm like, this is going to be a fucking sales disaster. And sure
I
enough,
only have the first version. I haven't tried it yet.
don't bother. It's,
I spent $60, so I'm going to try it at least.
yeah, I mean, you might as well. If you've already got it on the shelf, you might as well. I actually finally gave it a second shot because I hated that fucking game on the Wii. Nish Quick Pops, another content creator, encouraged me to try it. And there are things that it does brilliantly. There are like legitimately some things that it does absolutely brilliantly. But on the other hand, man, just oh god, that there it's everything I despised about Zelda, about like future Zelda. It's everything I despised about it. And why I offloaded on that game post like Link to the Past. I fucking hated that game. Also was not a fan of Other M. The entire second half of the Wii was such a fucking disappointment to me. But that's a whole nother story, man. But yeah, if you go back and look at some of those Sakamoto interviews and some of the bizarre shit he said, like I can just imagine like if Gunpei Yokoi was still alive, he'd be like, "What the fuck are you doing, man?" But I'm glad they course corrected because Dread was fucking marvelous.
Well, yeah, that definitely was. The Metroid 2 remake was really good too.
I heard that. So and that
That one
was
was like a sales flop, but to be fair, the 3DS was on its way out in 2017.
yeah. I don't think you can lay that at the feet of the game's quality, having not played it. But I've heard nothing but good things about that one.
It's definitely a top 5 Metroid for me. I think it's the 4th out of the top 5 that I would.
What would your ranking of Metroids be, like, if you don't mind me asking?
For Metroid, it'd be Fusion, Prime, Dread, Samus Returns, Prime 2.
Okay. Nice. Yeah. God, Dread is so good. It's such a
Dread is phenomenal, and that's definitely a game I'm going to keep going back to. Probably won't play it as much as Fusion. I've beaten Fusion so many times, it's unbelievable. But
so Fusion to me is a really interesting game because that is where like it perfected the whole idea of Metroid's original roots, which was like movies like Alien, for example. And you've got this stalker, scary, terrifying fucking enemy. It fits so well into Metroid and what it like. It's such a cool premise.
it's a horror game in disguise. Not a lot of people like see it that way, but
It is.
if you
No,
get
100%.
yeah, if you get past the colorful visuals, which like contradicts the story and
Sure.
just the dark tone of it, it's just you can see that what they were going for, and I think they nailed it. And then I don't want to call Dread a copy of it, but you can tell it's taking inspiration from its predecessor, and
With
that's
the
why I
ambience.
think it flows. Yeah, I think it flows so well as a sequel. I think that's why it makes a lot of sense for that to be the sequel. But you can definitely see the two and two together.
Quick announcement for folks. Spoiler alert. Just throwing that out there right now for Dread. But I was not prepared for how awesome of a fucking villain Ravenbeak was.
I wish he was more in the game, to be honest with you.
Me too. No,
And
he chewed the scenery and he was fucking every scene he was in fucking incredible.
he was he's definitely cool. I'd like to see him in the next Smash Brothers, but I also hope,
Yes.
and I also hope, like you said, spoiler alert. I also hope that the Ravenbeak that you kill at the end of the game, once you get the Metroid suit, was like not the actual Ravenbeak, so he appears in Metroid 6. But who knows?
I love the way that ended too. It was literally like a culmination of her entire fucking story, man.
Yeah, it kind of like when I first saw the ending sequence, like before you fight him, and they like he called her daughter and all that stuff. I'm like, what?
Well, and then also kind of throwbacks to the end of Super Metroid, where basically you get beat and then you power up again. And
yes, it was definitely one of those things that made you like, okay, that's badass.
oh yeah, had the ring theory definitely going for it, which is really always kind of neat to see.
Yeah, it sucks that we'll probably only see him in one game, but
Still, very compelling villain. Like I am a Raven Beak fan for sure. Like that's a
fanboy over here.
fucking cool ass character, man.
Yeah, so I hope that we see him in Smash Bros. 6.
So what do we think about what are we thinking about all of these storefronts closing? Nintendo Revised Gaming Off the Grid's been showing that, but it's getting harder and harder to be a physical gamer, man. Everywhere you look, you've got stores not selling them anymore. We've taken it really on the chin this week. We've got game after game coming out where everything's got to be fucking downloaded despite having a cart. How much longer do you think we got, homie?
Physical games aren't going to go away, personally, but I think it's just going to become harder and harder to find them. And if they don't go away completely, I think the only way that we're going to be able to do physical gaming is if you buy them directly from the publisher. For instance, if you want to buy a specific PS5 game from Sony, you have to go to their Sony website or like their PlayStation website, Ubisoft, maybe their Ubisoft website. But I don't think it's ever going to go away. As for like games that require downloads, that's just kind of the price we have to pay for cheap publishers. I have several games for Switch that require downloads, and since I don't delete those games off my Switch, I'm not too worried about it. But for whatever reason, if I lose those updates, it just renders the game useless, which kind of sucks. But I mean,
right. It's a coaster at that point, man.
That's the price that I have to pay to have it physically. I think the one that bothers me the most out of all the games that I have that require download is probably the Spyro trilogy on Switch, because it's a 16 gigabyte game, but they only used an 8 gigabyte cartridge, and that's the one that bothers me the most because they could have put the whole game on the cartridge.
It's just cheap.
I mean,
yeah, it's just cheap.
Activision did that with Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2. The only thing that you have to download for that game is the multiplayer, like the split screen multiplayer, and it improves performance. But for Spyro, I don't know if you saw his findings or does it play his findings. It's only the first world of each game, which is kind of shocking because I thought it was always the first entire game. But for whatever, if that were to go away on Switch, I'd at least have it the revised edition on PS4, like the complete disc. They released that in 2019, and they have all three on the disc, as opposed to the launch version where only the first game was on disc. But yeah, I bit the bullet on some of them. Like I just bought the BioShock collection for Switch, and that requires a hefty download. I think that 2K probably could have released each game individually on cartridge, kind of like how Crytek did with the Crysis remasters. But at the same time, it kind of it's whatever. But I think my newest game, Borderlands 3, I think I was like one of the first people to mention it on Twitter.
I saw that.
Nintendo Revised and Does It Play is that there's only like 3.2 gigabytes used on the cartridge, and you can't progress to mission 4, which is kind of disappointing. But I mean, it's not a deal breaker to me. It just
a little disappointing, yeah.
But if with Spyro, if anything were to happen to my Switch download, I have the game physically on PS5. So.
100%. That's fully on disc, right?
The base game and some of the DLC is on disc, but for instance, like the director's cut and the designer's cut and all that stuff, no, it was on a DLC slip.
That pisses me off because
they could definitely put everything on disc because if you download everything, I think it's like less than 90 gigs, if not maybe a little bit more. I don't know the exact number.
In the PS5, isn't the Blu-ray isn't it some insane storage?
It's 100 gigabytes. That's the storage.
100 gigabytes. So they absolutely could have done it.
They could have done it like how Sony just re-released Horizon Forbidden West. They released it with 2 discs, where the DLC and some updates are on 1 disc, and then you can install it and then have the base game. It's always on disc. You just have to install it differently,
which is fine as long as it's all there. Like I remember the first time I ran into that was like Metal Gear Solid 4, I think. someone said that there's a big install, but it's all on the disk. Like all the data you need to rip from it. It's like a old PC game basically, where it all
Yeah.
rips right from the disk. And I'm good with that. I have all kinds of old big box PC games. I've got Morrowind, I've got Star Control, I got all kinds of them that do exactly that. You just got to rip it on. But yeah, it just
It's just this it's the publisher. It's just if they want to put the money into it. I know that before I stopped buying multiplayer games for PlayStation, I had Modern Warfare 2 2022, like from Activision, and that disc only had 72 megabytes of data on it. So it was essentially just the licensing on the disc, and you had to download everything.
amazing. Especially and how much of this, and this is what I've checked with a few people um, like MVG Dave. If you follow him, he knows a lot about the tech behind systems, things of that nature. And one of the things that bothers me about these new systems is we were sold these new systems. We're always sold a console transition as follows. The pitch for a console transition is, hey, you're going to get more graphical fidelity, you're going to get better processing power, you're going to get all this shit. But a lot of times I feel like these console transitions aren't so much for us as they are for the devs and the publisher's convenience now. And what I mean by
Uh,
that is that there's no fucking reason why Metal Gear Solid collection should be like 40 gigabytes worth of shit. There's no reason for that. There's no reason why the ROMs of a fucking MSX game should be 4 gigabytes. No fucking excuse for that. That's just
yeah,
bad optimization, homie. That's
if you're
just
talking about the Switch version specifically, they could have put all the games on the cartridge.
100%. Or just the way you're seeing these ballooning. Like, I'm sorry, there is Star Control 2 in 1992 programmed an entire galaxy, like hand placed, thousands of worlds in 1992. Ultima 7 literally does things that some games still can't do today, as far as the immersiveness and the options available in terms of tackling things. You tell me, these people that tell me that it takes 300 gigabytes or 250 fucking gigabytes. No, it doesn't. That's just bad optimization. That's bad programming, and
It's
it needs to
what
stop.
they don't want to fix. It's not going to stop.
Yeah, if it's not going to
It's,
stop, then we're
they
going to
don't
reach.
want to put the effort into it. So
Yeah, and then I don't want to put effort into this hobby anymore, and that's my message to them. I'm just going to stop
it's
buying their
just
shit.
yeah, it's this generation's been probably the generation where I'm just like, yeah, I'm gonna pick and choose what I want to
Hmm.
play the most over anything. Because I would just keep buying and buying and buying. But I think the majority of the games I bought this year are for older game consoles.
Yeah, basically, and that's the good news, and this is my message to anybody who's listening. The good news about all this shit is that no matter what happens with the way they want to try to chart and kettle us in, there are enough games available physically on disc done right now to last us 40 fucking lifetimes. There's not enough time to play all the games that are already available from the past.
I just don't recommend you buy physical Xbox Series X or Xbox One games.
Why is that?
Because the majority of those games, from what I've seen, aren't fully on disc. For instance, I think the Assassin's Creed, the Mirage that just came out,
Hmm.
I think there's only like 141 megabytes on the disc.
Oh God. See.
I stopped. That's the reason why I stopped buying physical Xbox games in 2014. It's just because all their games weren't fully on disc. I think Halo: The Master Chief Collection, a first-party title. I think because my friend has it, I think on disc is like less than 100 megabytes. So it's kind of like a physical license, and that's the
Yeah,
stuff that
it's
I can't.
it's it's an end user license agreement on a disc. That's all it
Yeah,
is.
and that's why I stopped buying physical Xbox games. And yeah, not every PlayStation 5 game is like that, but for instance, Spider-Man 2, I just bought that when it came out. If you don't update it or if you play games offline, they said that the version 1.0 can be played fully on the disc. It may be buggy, but you can still beat it, complete it, everything. So that's just that's the type of games that I like
Mhm.
versus having to download.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, it's like that discussion I kind of had to step in on with Joey Ferris. You were talking about Alan Wake 2 and how they're not even going to offer a fucking physical game on there. And again, if that's
Uh,
your, I'm
I can wait.
yeah, no judgment, no judgment whatsoever. Like, if, Joey wants to enjoy that. If he, I'm good with that. But
To be
enjoy.
fair, he's been waiting, but I have the remaster in PS5. I haven't played it yet. I've never played the original, so I can
Right.
wait as long as I can.
And so that's
But
what I told him. I said, "Hey, buddy, honestly, enjoy your end user license agreement." That's how I always
if
put
you
it to these digital folks. If you genuinely
if
like
you
it,
it's not that I'm against digital. It's just I like choice. Like it goes back
choice.
to how we said
Exactly.
if you take away choice, then I won't support it.
Yeah.
That was how I felt when they announced that it was a digital only. I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not going to support this. But
100%.
just for that instance, it's not the problem that it's digital. It's just I prefer to have physical, but one, I haven't played the original, like I said, and two, it's just you take away choice. I just can't support it.
So we're all, I'm always somebody who says we've all read different books, we've all had different experiences that kind of make us, kind of encompass us and who we are, and kind of gear us towards our interests. What are some of your other interests outside of video games?
Not a whole lot, to be honest. Yeah. I'm not a very exciting person. I go to work, come home. That's really about it.
Well,
uh,
I don't think you're alone in that. I think it feels
yeah,
more and
no,
more like
I
when you're.
don't. I'm not. I've never been somebody to do things like other interests. It's just kind of something that I didn't see the appeal of. Not because I'm antisocial. It's just
Sure.
something that I just don't feel like doing. But I mean, I like watching my movies. I have a huge freaking DVD selection. I used to collect a lot of VHS tapes, but I kind of stopped doing that. I don't know. I like mini golf.
Have you ever seen? Speaking of VHS tapes, you ever seen the Red Letter Media guys? Have you seen those guys do their thing?
I'm gonna be honest with you, I've not.
You got to check them out if you get a chance. They do a thing called Best of the Worst. They basically go and they collect old VHS tapes, and then they just basically they take some of these you wouldn't believe. Like there's one called Surviving Edged Weapons. It's like an old police training video that they found, and there is some of the most ridiculous, crazy shit. Like the skits are so bad, and they get a lot of fun out of these. But there's one like Sweating to the Oldies with Richard Simmons. They find
Yeah,
all.
little workout videos.
Oh yeah, and basically they sit down and they watch them, and then at the end of the night they crown a best of the worst. But like Ninja uh Ninja Cop 3, like, oh yeah, there's some wild ass shit that they pull. So
There's back in the day, they I don't think they had the same quality control they have now.
oh yeah, especially because back when there was, and this all goes back to one of my favorite memories as a kid. Is I would go into rent video games all the time. You'd go to the rental store. Ours was Family Video, our local rental.
Yeah,
But a lot of
yeah.
people remember the national chains like Blockbuster, um, Hollywood Video. But you'd go in and you'd rent video games, but you would also rent movies. And because of the way the rental stores were set up, the video rental places, there was a whole market where it was just direct to video rental store. And some of those movies were just incredible. That's the only way I can describe them. I don't mean incredible good.
No,
I
I know what
mean
you're
like
saying.
incredible as in like the room incredible. Like I can't believe what the fuck I'm watching right now.
Yeah, I never really rented a whole bunch of movies as a kid. I would always just do the gaming
Me too. Yeah,
personally.
I was mainly a video game rental, but dad was in
But
particular, my dad was always a horror movie fan. And some of the shit he would bring home was, oh my God. Like,
no, I'm quite familiar with the direct to DVD or direct to video
oh my
type of movie.
gosh.
So,
Yeah, it's it's garbage, but my man, it is gourmet garbage, I'm
I
telling you.
well, I think they stopped doing that now, except for the 18 billion American Pies that they released.
See, I stopped at, I think it was American Weddings where I stopped. There was more after that.
No, I mean, you stick to the main franchise. Like I think there's the 4 or 5 with the main cast, but I mean, they have like spin-offs like Bandcamp and all that stuff. I never watched those,
Oh
but I know of
shit.
them.
Okay.
But no, I think the last one with the main cast was Reunion, but that one was still solid.
Okay. Yeah, I'll tell you, the raunchy rom-com, you don't see that in theaters hardly at all anymore. That's kind of completely died by the wayside.
Well, yeah, I think it's just because they were making less money, and now with today's climate, that sort of thing, I just people kind of don't accept it anymore, which I can understand because even for the time they were kind of pushing that boundary. But I think nowadays people are a lot more cautious about what they talk about.
Some of it was a little mean-spirited, yeah, looking back. I feel like, yeah.
It's definitely the times have changed.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
And I'm not like hating on that because politically I'm more kind of on the left side than the right personally, but it's just you can't get away with things that you could have.
Yeah, I can sympathize a little bit with that. I typically describe my leanings as anarchist nihilist in the positive way, not the negative way. But so, and what I mean by that is that if in a world bereft of meaning, life has the meaning you give it. So again, nihilism and anarchism can be a positive force. It doesn't necessarily have
Just
to be a negative force.
live the life that you want. That's all I gotta say.
1000%. Yeah, just enjoy yourself. We're all here. We're all here for such a short time, man. So life is too short to be doing shit you don't want to do. So and there's always work. There's always fucking taxes. There's always shit you have to do, and there's always death. But in between those things, find the joy where you can, man. Like
All right.
that's what video games are about. That's what movies are about. That's what going to a concert, traveling the world, just whatever floats your boat. Get out there and do it. Spend time with loved ones. It's a magical world, despite some of these contrivances that we've built to literally cage ourselves. It really is a beautiful, glorious world out there when you get past all of the bullshit that we've constructed.
Yeah, I can agree to that.
1000.
Some people are a little crazy, but otherwise,
Just confine the craziness. Don't hurt nobody. Don't
please.
don't hurt nobody. But just
But
party hard because life does end. Now, now in general, I always like to give guests a chance to ask me anything. If you have any questions for me, you want to pick my brain on anything, because I feel like I picked your brain all fucking night. So always like to give you
I
an
mean,
opportunity.
I'm not very good at asking questions. I've never been doing that, but I mean, just what's on like I don't know. I don't. You put me on the spot. Okay.
Right, yeah, and then again, you can take your time. If you can't think of anything, that's fine. But
No, I just I've never been good at saying, oh, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? Because I mean, when we talk, you basically say what your opinion is on certain things. So I don't think I really have the need to say, hey, what do you
I'm
think
pretty,
about this?
yeah,
Because I already know.
I'm pretty transparent. Yeah, that's what a lot of people tell me. I'm pretty fucking transparent. I
I mean,
generally.
that's the point of a two-way conversation is because like you would bring up something, I'd say what I thought, you would say you thought. So I mean, just you know what I mean?
1000
Like
1000%. So that said, if there's nothing else, no other questions, I have one last question for you, real quick.
okay,
Ready for it?
sure.
Did you have fun?
I mean, I like talking about video games. I like talking about things that me and other people may have in common. To answer your question, yes. I mean, I like doing this
Beautiful.
kind of thing. I think this is the second time that I did this. There was one person, I can't, it's a Pokemon name. It's like Vaporon or something like that. He interviewed me a little while ago, earlier this year. So, I mean, this is not the first time I've done this. So, but yeah,
Awesome.
I like this kind of thing.
Fantastic. Now, was that about Pokemon or anything like that?
No, kind of like how we talked about like my opinion on video games. talked about Metroid, like what I'd like to see for the future and all that stuff. So we didn't go as deep as this one, but I mean, it was still an hour long. And it was a good time.
Fantastic. I guess I'll leave you on that note. Speaking of which, where do we think Metroid Prime 4 is going to go? They've been cooking that fucking thing. Like, I don't know if you've seen the joke channel where they literally, it's like Metroid Prime 4 news. There's a YouTube channel. It's a daily Metroid Prime 4 daily, it's called. And every day you click on this video and it's like, hey, welcome to Metroid Prime Daily News. There is no news today for Metroid Prime 4.
Yeah, I think they have the Twitter page as well, where
Uh-huh.
it's always Samus sitting at the desk saying there's no.
Yeah, so I mean, so they got to be cooking up something fucking incredible at Retro.
I
Given how
mean,
long it's been. Like,
I sure hope so. Right now, I'm not terribly excited for it because we just don't know anything about it.
we don't know
But
shit about it. Yeah, I would have thought we would have got a trailer this last E3, and it didn't fucking happen.
I think next year's the year. But no, story wise, I think it's gonna take place after Federation Force and before Metroid 2, because I don't know if you've seen the ending for Federation Force.
Oh,
Well, I
absolutely
personally,
not.
well, I haven't beaten the game personally, but the ending, you see Psylocke from Metroid Prime Hunters break into
Okay.
a Galactic Federation ship or building, and he makes a baby Metroid hatch, and that's how it ends. So I think that he's going to weaponize Metroids, and I think he's going to hunt Samus down in Prime 4, and then that's somehow going to correlate all the way through Prime 2. Like
Interesting theory.
my hope, which I don't think they're going to, but I don't know if you played Halo 2, I'm assuming. You know how
I played a lot of Halo with
in Halo 2, you know how they switch between Chief and the Arbiter, how you can control them.
I vaguely remember that. I played a lot of multiplayer, but yeah, I remember because like the Arbiter was the head of like the forces on Halo, and he got stripped of his title because he failed or whatnot, and then you go back and forth between him and Master, something like that.
Yeah, because you're playing the Arbiter trying to find Chief, and I hope that Retro takes kind of inspiration from that, where you take control of Psylocke trying to hunt Samus down, and I think that'd be pretty cool.
That could be a pretty incredible premise. I think that'd be sweet.
I don't think it's gonna happen, but I think that'd be cool.
Are we gonna see Silk Song, or are we gonna see Metroid Prime 4 first?
I mean, at this point, I have no idea. I thought, like I said earlier, I've never played Hollow Knight, so I don't really follow that kind of Silk Song. I know it's legendary. Yeah, I know it's been delayed numerous times, but
yeah, I'm sure you've seen the meme with the Hollow Knight with the knight sitting on the bench with his clown nose and his clown wig on, and
yes.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel waiting on both Prime 4 and Silk Song, because I want to play both, and I'm just
at this point, whenever it happens.
Right, and I think that's a healthy attitude, because you can see a lot of people that like get frustrated or mad. It's like there's no use in getting mad, man. Like it's gonna.
We have no control over what happens with dev cycles and all that stuff because we're not game developers. So things may change, things may get scrapped. I just hope that we somehow see the scrapped version of Prime 4. I think that'd be pretty cool.
I would like to see. Yeah, I'm very curious what the fuck happened there, because that is so. To have a public announcement like that, I think they announced it too early. First of all,
well, yeah, they needed to build up that momentum for the Switch because it was new.
Right. Yeah, and again, nobody knew how well games like Breath of the Wild, Odyssey were going to do, especially after Skyward Sword's awful performance. Galaxy 2's performance was really bad.
I love Galaxy 2.
I've heard, people tell me I've got to try the Galaxy games. People tell me I have to try.
I would suggest the second one over the first because it's more straightforward with the map and all that stuff. But personally, I just like the second one a lot better.
I hear both are fantastic games. Like
they're great 3D platformers.
Yeah, sales wise though, they just the same with Skyward Sword. There was just a lot of bad performance near that tail end. And so I think that made a lot of people nervous. And he had the Wii U follow it, and just so I think there was a lot of trepidation. So I think they announced it early, like you said, to try to say, oh, by the way, this is also coming, not knowing that Breath of the Wild was going to do what it did, not knowing that Odyssey was going to do what it did. A fucking 3D Mario game that has sold like 28 million copies, which that's the first time. Typically, 3D Mario underperforms 2D Mario, but not this time. Like
Yeah,
it was.
Odyssey was definitely a
Oh,
great surprise. One of the
Odyssey was fun. Yeah, and Odyssey again. I'm not the biggest 3D Mario guy, but I had fun with Odyssey. Like I
yeah,
legitimately thought that was a great game.
I think I'm due for another playthrough, but for right now, it can stay on the shelf.
Yeah, I've eventually got to review it because I do Switch video essays. At least I say I do Switch video essays. I've just been getting fucking drunk and talking to people on this show lately, but I am going to
Learn
get
how to
back
create
to it. I've got a review for the Space for the Unbound that has been coming forever. I got a Persona 5 review that's coming, and I've got a review on Metro and Metro Last Light coming, like the Metro Redux collection.
Yeah, I got that for Switch. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So, all righty. Well, man, thanks for stopping on. We'll definitely have to do this again if you're down. 100%. Yeah, I've enjoyed the shit of having you on. Like, man, it's been a fun time, and we'll go ahead and we'll end the stream. Thanks everybody for coming out. And if anybody has any questions, you can always DM me. Anybody wants to come on the show, I'll talk to anybody, man. I just like Metroid here, like MetroidFreak21 here. I just love talking to people about video games. So yeah, come on the show, have a drink, have a good time. Anybody who wants to is always down. And I'm always down to talk to you folks. Have a great night. Love y'all. Get out of here.
See you later.